this concept of self-service. We still do way too much for the market, for our customers, when they're happy to do so much for themselves. The problem with doing self-service over the network is hard. Servicing human beings with software, with ones and zeros, is very cheap if you can do it right, but it's very, very hard because there's so many exception cases and error scenarios. But that's one of the key ways to drive new economic models using the network, is that self-service, if you can do it, if you can service your customers well with just a little bit of electricity and the network versus hiring rooms full of people. You can see the economic benefits right there. Self-service can do enormous amounts in terms of providing bottom line benefit. Open business models, which we'll talk about at the end of the session, and new social power structures. This is often goes into that cultural chasm issue where people go, well, I don't know if I understand that, or if I like that, or I want that to happen in my business. But increasingly, you have little choice. Your customers are already going off and doing what they want. I'm going to give you an example of many large brands that didn't understand this, and they didn't understand that their customers love their products and want to talk about them, to meet other people who also feel like them and work together and improve the brand. And so we'll talk about IKEA, Harley-Davidson, and many other companies where they did not give their customers a choice to interact with them in that way over the network. So customers went off by hundreds of thousands and did it themselves. And basically, the companies got cut out of the conversation, even though it's their own brand. So we'll talk about these new social power structures as we go along. I should say, with the caveat that we know of so far. This whole presentation here is as we know of so far. The things are unfolding and happening so rapidly. 3 years ago, we hadn't heard of Facebook, and now it's one of the most used applications. It's becoming its own software platform, just like Windows. It's literally taken over everything and surpassed almost all other means of communication that we have. So I refer to network effects, and that's really at the principle of the network effect is at the basis of any network-based system. It's when a good or service has more value than more than other people have it too. A great example of this is a case study that we did at AOL. They had Document, which is not really a social media product at all. It's just a document management system that everyone was supposed to keep information that was supposed to be shared amongst workers, like Sarbanes-Oxley and all the other publicly key data points. But it was hard to use. It's enterprise software. And just get a sense of who we're talking to here, how many, a show of hands, work in large companies? Over 1,000 people. Okay, not that many enterprise people. They aren't familiar with Document. Somebody at AOL just installed MediaWiki, which is a free open source software product that runs Wikipedia. They're already globally scaled to the planet. It's free. They installed it under their desk. And they added some data to it, and when people wanted the information, they would share the links. Within a very short amount of time, we're talking 60 days, every adjacent department had access to it. We're already starting to use what soon became AOL Office Wiki. A wiki is just an editable web page. Anyone can go up and hit the edit button and change the contents. And the trick is to get your changes to stay, right? Within 90 days, the entire organization was using AOL Office Wiki. And I was giving a talk like this to them, and I asked them, how many of you use Document? It's supposed to be the formal tool. 3 people raised their hands. I say, how many use AOL Office Wiki? Virtually everyone raised their hands. And what happened was, because it was so easy to use, so viral, that it became the dominant platform for managing information within the organization unofficially. It wasn't sanctioned by anybody. And they eventually had to figure out what they were going to do with it. Well, how the network effect of this simple platform pushed this big, expensive, multi-million-dollar system to the edges of the organization in a few short weeks. These are the kinds of changes that we see inside of organizations that adopt these social media tools that optimize for this concept. They're designed intrinsically in their core to build network effects, to be more valuable more than other people have them too. And this is why we've seen all the social media and Web 2.0 tools flourish on the web. It's the same basic principle. So what's interesting is that we've gone from what we call this 1.0 era, where we had these push business models, like if you did marketing or PR or almost anything, you threw it over the wall to the marketplace, right? You had very little input, so often late in the process when all the work was already done. We had traditional customer service. We focused on bestseller products. One-on-one customer relationships. We designed the products primarily ourselves. Oh, sure, we had focus groups and we had surveys. What would you like to see in the product? We paid lip service to this, but that's a very different way of doing things we see on the open network today, where it is much more of a free-for-all. We have these what we call full business models. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Open source software, customer self-service. We focus on the long tail of the marketplace, which is much bigger than just focusing on bestseller products. Some traditional media, we have social media, customer community relationships. So instead of just having a one-on-one relationship, most people even today, if you're trying to deal with a company, they're dealing with you one-on-one. In these new online community-based relationships, the entire customer base is dealing with the company. This is like SAP, which has the world's largest customer community, 1.5 million registered users. They can all see and interact with each other, and it's been an enormous boom to the company in terms of better customer service and product support. And this is a pattern you do see. You notice I'm talking about a fair number of technology companies like AOL and SAP who kind of get this stuff before the rest of the industry has, and they've been very successful. SAP is the most successful customer community in the world today. 1.5 million registered customers is pretty good, especially for a pretty boring set of corporate products. No offense, SAP is a great company. But the key message here is we move from this, we do it all ourselves. We do everything ourselves, no matter how cheap or expensive it is. Whereas we give up a little control, we bring the network in, and we get this great increase in variety and volume. This great increase in almost in any part of our business that we're willing to consider opening up in a social way. The social piece is particularly important. And you notice here that I say you get this increase in variety and volume. It's the first one, that's the other issue. This is what gets businesses concerned. Oh, I get that I'll get more variety and volume in whatever part of my business, whether that's sales and marketing or product development or operations, whatever it is. If I can start opening that up in a controlled way, I'll still get this unpredictability. You look at, again, the broadcast industry is a good example. Industry being remade by this right now. They tried to produce everything themselves, but then came along like YouTube with a literally pocket change, and within 18 months had more viewers than all of those companies combined by letting the network produce all of their content. And they did. If you remember, they had tremendous problems with unpredictability because a lot of people posted copyrighted content to 20% of YouTube's videos that they had along was copyrighted at one point, and they had to figure out ways to control that. And that's really the message here. We're now getting mature enough where we're starting to see many of this being repeated, much of this being repeated in different industries, but we're learning these lessons saying, all right, we're going to have this. We really have to upfront manage this risk and unpredictability. We can plug social media into our organizations and get much better results. A great increase in variety and volume if we're smart and look at how we can control the unpredictability aspect of things. All right, so now we're going to break down some of the things that we were talking about. We're going to increase the level of magnification. We're going to talk about social media inside of businesses. This is going to be one of the things that most of your organizations can do right away, or your clients will do right away, depending on where you're coming from. Because it's perceived as the least risky. This is something you can do kind of privately. We can use social media inside the company at first. I remember when I first used to talk about this, and saw even with some early success stories, people say, I don't get, you're telling me to blog, I don't have time for that.